Well, just moments ago, U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed EU leaders to the White House as he holds talks with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. During the talks, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz called for a ceasefire in Ukraine before a leaders' summit, contradicting U.S. President Donald Trump's call to work for a peace deal with Russia instead.
Ahead are the more complicated ones now. The path is open. You opened it last Friday. But now the way is open for complicated negotiations. And to be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that.
I believe a peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable, and it can be done in the near future. With all of the wars that I got involved in, we only have this one left. We also need to discuss the possible exchanges of territory, taking into consideration the current line of contact. That means the war zone, the war lines that are pretty obvious, very sad actually to look at them. And negotiating positions. President Putin, also you have President of Ukraine, who is, you just met a little while ago, and we're going to try and get a three-party meeting, maybe as soon as we can. Just had the honor of being with President Zelenskyy and all of the discussions that we've had. We covered a lot of territory, and I spoke indirectly with President Putin today. We're going to call President Putin right after this meeting. I'm sure we're going to have a solid meeting, good meeting, maybe a great meeting, and we're going to try and work out a trilat after that and see if we can get it finished. Today, we've had a very successful day thus far. Important discussions as we work to end the killing and stop the war in Ukraine. We're all working for the same goal, very simple goal. We want to stop the killing, get this settled.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York. We also have with us Dr. Anna Matvieva, is a senior fellow, Russia Institute, King's College, London. She's joining us live from London. Welcome, both of you. First up, Susan, your key highlights from that very unusual meeting that we witnessed in the White House with Zelensky, Trump and the 7 European leaders. It did look like that everybody was on the same page, a large momentum towards ending the war and bringing peace in Ukraine.
Yeah, what an extraordinary sight to see, really. You covered these things, and it's very rare to see something like this transpire with the European leaders, Ukraine's leader, and of course President Trump hosting everyone from Europe and from Ukraine as well. So it is very significant, and it appears that everyone seems to be on the same page. According to a source that was in the pre-Trump-Zelensky meeting at the Ukrainian embassy, where Zelensky met with European leaders, this source says that Europe is sort of nudging Ukraine now to agree to some sort of land concession during these negotiations and going into that possible trilateral meeting with Russia and the United States. And that's why sort of the mood has somewhat shifted and changed, that there may be light at the end of the tunnel, not only regarding the security guarantees that Europe and the United States wants to provide Ukraine, which once Ukraine has that in hand, it might be easier for Zelensky to take home and convince the Ukrainians about land concessions, but also really that there is this kind of awareness that the only way this war is going to end is sort of in that context where Ukraine does agree to give up some land. Now, the source says that there is an understanding that, of course, Zelensky is not going to be agreeing to the very first offer that Putin puts on the table, but at least Zelensky needs to get clear on what he's willing to give up and what he wants to hold. So those are the latest developments. Those are the highlights. And of course, we saw that the Europeans were very adamant in putting on a united front when it came to dealing with Russia. It was interesting that Friedrich Merz brought up the issue of ceasefire. We sort of thought that that was a no-go moving forward. We'll see if the Europeans will discuss that with President Trump. It's hard to imagine that that's something that Putin would agree to at this point in time, considering the fact that the president also doesn't seem too adamant at this point now to have a ceasefire before these trilateral negotiations continue. So lots of developments, lots to digest. Just one thing I thought that hasn't been getting the coverage that should. President Trump mentioned that perhaps after the meeting, there's going to be some news of prisoner swaps happening between Russia and Ukraine, or that Russia is going to be sort of releasing some prisoners. He alluded to that. Let's see if that transpires as well.
Right, Susan, thanks for getting us latest on that. We also have with us Dr. Anna Mateva, who's joining us live from London. Dr. Mateva, first up, how do you see where situation stands right now with big statements coming out of the White House? And what I just asked my correspondent, Susan, as well, as to how both the leaders, Zelensky and Trump, they all are on the same page, perhaps to bring peace in Ukraine.
I am not sure that they're on the same page because when Zelensky spoke earlier at the meeting with Trump and the journalists, he was really talking more about we need more weapons, we need a stronger army, we need intelligence support. He didn't really talk about peace. He said, yes, Ukraine needs truce, but in the end, peace was not the kind of major part of his message. And the stakes for war was something which he actually emphasized. The European leaders are trying to play what in their view is a constructive game, trying to get something out of this so that it will come out positively. But they seem to be, or at least some of them seem to be going against President Trump on the ceasefire question. That may be a difficult act to pull. And the other thing which is quite important, the dynamics of the whole thing, is that first Zelensky apparently was briefed and guided and scripted through and through what he's going to say, how he's going to look, how he's going to stand or sit. So that is a very, very scripted performance. The other thing is that none of the European leaders wants to go head-to-head with Trump on their own. So they suddenly dropped everything else, what they are doing in their own countries and their organizations, and they all flocked to Washington at short notice because they only feel that as a group, they can be sort of a counterweight to Trump. Otherwise, none of them feel that they can really take him on their own.
All right, Dr. Mateva, just to add to what you said, that Zelensky was talking about weapons, he also said that he's looking for a reliable and lasting peace before he met Trump. And on the point you made there that the European leaders and Trump are not on the same page, it was just the German chancellor who spoke about ceasefire. But all in all, they all also agreed for a trilateral meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. How do you see the Russian president viewing all of this, with Trump also saying that he will call Putin after the meeting's end today?
I think the Russian president really hopes that Trump would get something which would be sort of satisfactory or as a sound basis for compromise, which they can then sort of negotiate around. So in that sense, he's also holding his breath. He also doesn't know how things would go. He also knows that this is the only chance for peace under Trump's presidency. If Trump feels that things are going nowhere, that he's not getting a settlement quickly, he doesn't have a patience of a saint. He wants to know either that he can achieve a breakthrough or not. And in that sense, Putin is very determined to make sure that he does everything which he can so that this chance for peace is not lost.
All right. You say that the Russian President Vladimir Putin realizes this is the only chance for peace under Trump's presidency, but he's also extremely adamant on land swap and territorial gains, with Putin clearly saying that he wants Donbass, Donetsk, Luhansk and Zaporizhia region, and after which only Russia will stop pounding Ukraine. What do you have to say on that?
Yes, that's, well, we don't know exactly what has been said, but roughly speaking, yes, that he wants to have, he wants Ukraine to make territorial concessions, but Ukraine had a chance to get a better deal with Russia. That was negotiations in April 2022, when Russia really only controlled Crimea. At that time, there was no question about territorial swap other than Crimea. So in that sense, the Ukrainian side decided that that deal was not good enough. So yes, this current deal is worse than the one which was on the table 3 years ago. But the danger is that if we continue on that path and lose this chance for peace, which I think is quite realistic, the next terms for peace, which will come in a few years' time, would be worse than what is on the table now. So yes, I think that it needs to be grabbed.
All right, Dr. Matvieva, thank you so much for joining us here on WION with your insights.
Thank you.
All right, we still have our correspondent Susan Tehrani here with us. Yes, Susan, like we were discussing that how European leaders, Trump and Zelensky, are on the same page to end the fighting here. But Trump also mentioned that there will be difficult negotiations on land swap, on which Zelensky did not really elaborate on that front. Tell us more.
So the problem right now is, prior to the meeting, Zelensky said that even if he wanted to give up land, he has a constitutional obligation not to do so. He can't do that under the Ukrainian constitution. It would require a referendum, and the majority of the Ukrainian people are opposed to that. This is according to Volodymyr Zelensky. However, when he brought that argument to the Europeans pre-Trump Zelensky meeting, the mood in that room was sort of, that's your problem. You can go figure that out in your own country, but you have to give up some concessions. Now, there is talk about this territory having a lot of great minerals, and that's why Russia wants it. That's another complicated aspect of it. And according to the U.S., on territory with minerals being under Russian control, basically, if America has a stake in land, it is a security in of itself. It is in their interest to make that work. So what that means is the security guarantees that we're talking about, perhaps it may be some way where President Trump hinted that there may be American forces in Ukraine. It may be sort of that some of these lands will be controlled by the United States with full minerals. And that itself is sort of a security guarantee for Ukraine that Russia won't pass the lines of war that have been drawn if there is an agreement. And so those, I think, are the little nitty-witty things that we have to look at, and the complications that President Trump was alluding to. It's not just, you get this part of the land, you get that part of the land. It's, is it mineral-rich land? Is it the parts where Russia doesn't yet control but may control in 3 years from now, the fortresses that Ukrainians have been able to hold in these regions? Does Russia want the land that it already has? Does it want more? So I think those are the negotiations that they're going to have. And that's the part where I think Europeans said that, Zelensky has to sit and figure out what he's willing to give up and what he's not willing to give up. So yes, absolutely, that the issue of land swap is going to be very complicated.
Right, Susan, thanks for getting us the latest right now on the show. We, of course, be tracking this very closely here with you.